might be surprised to know that many well-intentioned charities have hurt more than they've helped people. Blake Barrows, CEO of El Paso's Rescue Mission, is here to explain how they are trying to provide a hand up instead of a handout. Welcome, Blake.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. I understand that you're in the center of controversy these days.
Oh, I don't know if it's central, but we decided to look at the way that we've been doing things for 60 years. Now the rescue mission's been in El Paso, and we made a major change of how we minister to the poor it's been about 6 weeks now. And before, for 60 years, we have served food free of charge to anyone that comes in. And we started charging for the food. Lots of reasons behind that to see what would happen.
Right.
The results have been fantastic.
Well, how you say the results have been fantastic. How has it been received by clients? What's been the result? And how much are you charging?
Well, breakfast is free. So, first thing, let's lay out all the rules, because I don't want people to think we're turning people away hungry. That is not happening. Right. All breakfast is free. Whenever a person comes into the mission for the first time, their first meal is free. After that, lunch and dinner are $1.50. Now, all meals for children are free, and we have a lot of kids at the rescue mission. A lot of folks are surprised to hear that. But the largest growing element of the homeless population now are women and children, unfortunately.
Wow. Yeah, that is tragic.
So, and then all medical cases are free. So we get a lot of people that come over, they've just been discharged from a hospital and they have no place to go, and they come over to recover at the rescue mission. Well, their food is free. So we have a lot of folks that are eating free. Now, what about those that you don't fit into one of those categories? You need to pay $1.50 for your meal, but you don't have the $1.50. Okay, we'll create a little job for you. And just as I left the mission to come over here, here was a man who was staying at the mission, and he has this big plastic sack bag, and he's going around the property picking up trash. And it is quite windy this morning, so in El Paso the trash blows in. Sure. And the mission has never looked cleaner. We have people that are cleaning up, they're sweeping the driveway, they're picking up cigarette butts, and they are working for their meal.
Right. I think there's a proverb about that in terms of being able to, contribute and give back, and not just having the handout. So why is this so controversial? Well,
it's just out of the box. And my wife used to say I was unique, and we've been married 31 years. Now she just says I'm different. So I have trouble finding where the box is. But, I was talking with a man who had been homeless for 15 years. And he was a drug addict. He'd been living on the streets. He came through our relapse prevention, the drug and alcohol rehabilitation program. And he now, I first met him 12, 13 years ago. He now has his own car, he has his own house, complete recovery, and he comes back to the mission every morning to teach our Bible study, one of the Bible studies that we have for the people going through the program. And I was talking to him, what was it that finally clicked here? Because we went through a lot of times of failure. And in fact, I had hired this guy and fired him at least 5 times.
Oh my.
Which is how far we go to, so we're beyond second chance, third chance.
Yeah, that's 70 times 7. I mean, how often should you forgive someone?
We keep going. And he told me what he had to say just really struck home. He said that when I was at my lowest, the only thing that I really believed in was failure. I knew I could fail and I could do it well. And seriously, he said, I know how to fail, and I expect to fail. And then you came along and you believed in me and you gave me a job. And before I had the job, then whatever food that I had, it was a handout from somebody. And I felt like I was just the object of their pity, which contributed to my feeling useless. But once I had a job and I had some money that I could buy things, now I've become a customer. And that was the beginnings of my feeling good about myself.
So that was empowering.
Yes.
Yeah, and you also have done a lot of reading and research on this topic, and so how long have you been thinking about it, and at what point did you say, we're going to do this, or we're going to try this?
I got to thinking about it about the 1st of March, and the first thing that I did, and I'd read a book, that there was really a brilliant guy, and I heard him speak live a few years ago in Atlanta, named Dr. Robert Lupton. He's got a PhD in sociology, and he talks about that very idea that if I give you something that you actually had the capacity to buy yourself, then I make you the object of my pity. Whereas if I sell you something, even if it's dramatically below market rate, now you're my customer and we're on the same level. And I think being on the same level is where communication and ministry occurs. So he wrote a fascinating book. It's called Compassion, Charity, and the Christian Life. And I had read that one. And then the next thing I did is I had to sit down with all of my staff, all my counselors. Now, I've got a lady there, Juana Ortega, wonderful lady. She's my right arm and sometimes the left. And she's been ministering to the poor there for, I think, 27 years. So I was really surprised. I presented these ideas. What would happen if we started charging $1.50 for a meal? And the response from my staff was just immediate and positive, and wow, why didn't we think of this before? Great idea.
Yeah. Well,
And
there you go.
now there was a fascinating story. So I knew that if we're going to start charging people for the food, we needed to immediately upgrade the quality of the food.
Yes.
So what I did is got a grant through one of the local foundations, and we bought a great big grill smoker. And this thing is big enough to where I can cook 50 hamburgers on it at one time,
nice.
or smoke 10 turkeys at one time. Well, we'd been into this food charging policy for about 3 days. And I'm up there in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, we're starting the fire in this smoker. And this big guy comes up to me and he says, what are we cooking? And I said, we're having smoked turkey this evening. Will you be joining us? He thinks a few seconds, says, I better go get a job. Now, this is great.
Yeah.
You know, here was an able-bodied man that was not working, but when he sees that he needs to scrape up $1.50 and he's got 8 hours to do it, or he doesn't get our smoked turkey dinner, then he is anxious to go get a job.
So that's a motivation, a positive motivation,
Absolutely.
and whatever it takes, that's good. Yeah.
Now another thing that we did. So when I get this idea, I go into the kitchen, and I realize I look at all the utensils that we have. We had no muffin pans. So out of my own pocket, I go down to the restaurant supply, and I buy $100 worth of muffin pans. And I come back and I tell my chefs, we now have muffin pans, we're going to have muffins. And in fact, everybody loves the smell of freshly baked bread. So at least every other day, you will bake something. So it began as an order. This is the way this will be done. Well, the food starts getting so much better. And now I have these people that are coming in the homeless population, and they're enjoying the food so much. And someone even went on our Facebook page and posted a note on my Facebook page that says, some of the best food in El Paso is being served at the rescue mission.
Well, there you have it, right
Now,
there.
with all modesty, I was cooking that day. So he starts baking things, and he starts really getting creative with all of the dishes. You know, now, and I'm buying spices for him so he can jazz things up a little more. We're way beyond rice and beans. And he starts getting so many compliments from the guests that we have. that his creativity just soars.
Oh, isn't that
And I
wonderful?
no longer have to order him to make a more creative
Right.
dish. I can't keep up with his creativity.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So it's having just this positive effect all the way around, kind of a synergistic effect between the clients or the customers and the staff as
Yeah.
well. That's really wonderful. So how are the other shelters in town reacting to this?
Well,
because there are, how many other shelters are there approximately?
That's a great question. And there are lots of folks out there doing lots of good work. Of course, we have the Salvation Army, the YWCA, Reynolds House, La Posada Home, Via Maria, the Opportunity Center. One thing that the people need to understand is the homeless population is not a homogeneous group. And we have all of these shelters, and they all serve different populations. And you cannot serve everybody at once.
Right.
Now,
So it's good to have the segmentation,
we have
so to
to.
speak.
We
Yeah.
have to. Now, there was a lady came up to me about 3 years ago, and it's one of the things that got me to thinking, and I'm a little slow. This one took 3 years. But here is this homeless lady with a child. And I'm talking to her, and I said, well, why don't you come over to the rescue mission? I haven't seen you. She says, yes, I went over there, but I really didn't feel safe with some of the men that you had. You know, that hurt.
Ooh.
But I'm starting to think.
And that's reality, too.
That's reality.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And we've got to look at who it is among the homeless population do we really want to help. Now, what has happened when we go charging for food is that, and it's almost exclusively single men, that did not want to do anything to help themselves. They all went away.
Interesting. Usually that isn't the problem so much with women, is my understanding. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, what we were walking a fine line,
Right.
because of course the rescue mission is a drug and alcohol free facility. And then we would have this camp of people back by the railroad tracks that thought those rules were oppressive. And so they want to
Yes.
go off doing their own thing.
Right.
But yet they want to come in and have a meal. So,
Can they do that?
well, they were.
Okay.
And they still can if they have their $1.50.
Oh, okay.
But for the most part, those people didn't care to pay $1.50. They didn't want to bother. And the honest truth is, if they had that much resource, they would prefer to drink their lunch. So this was the group that would come in drunk and rowdy, that was scaring the other people away that I really wanted to serve.
Right.
So
Another benefit.
well, it really was, because now I've been at this over 14 years, and as I say, I'm a slow learner. Nobody taught me how to do it.
Right.
But one lesson that I've learned is you cannot help a person that doesn't want to do anything to help himself. If you're not willing to do anything to better your position, then I can't really help you.
Right.
I can put a Band-Aid on things, but lasting cure, forget it.
Right.
You've got to get up and help yourself.
Can you hypothesize as to at what point somebody crosses that bridge from I'm not going to do anything to I want to help myself? I mean, you've had a lot of experience with that.
Yes, and you know, with the example of this guy that I had hired and fired 5 times,
Right.
it was a process of building up his self-esteem. And that self-esteem got built up when he had the ability to do things for himself. So if we create an environment that here is a meal, and instead of just giving you that meal, you're going to earn this meal. You can earn it through labor or whatever it is to get $1.50 in your pocket. You're going to earn this meal. And then if I have the capacity to actually buy something instead of receiving someone's charity, my self-esteem is building up.
Right. And so with that comes taking those baby steps toward providing for themselves and beginning to see that. So how you didn't quite answer the question, how are other charities
yes. Yeah, I get carried
don't know if
away.
You're trying to dodge it.
You know, they did an article in the Times, and I made the first page.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. That no free meal now at the rescue mission. And then the reporter obviously didn't realize that different shelters do different things. And she had called over and spoke to someone at the Opportunity Center. And do you charge for meals? Oh, no, I think this idea is terrible. Well, if I were running the Opportunity Center, I wouldn't charge either. The segment of the population that we want to focus on are I'll call them the rehabilitatable. I don't know if that's a word or not, but I want to help people out of homelessness. I don't want to be a permanent flop house. The Opportunity Center is very upfront about what they do. They call themselves the shelter of last resort, and they say that they're there to provide shelter and care for people who are either unable or unwilling to move beyond their present circumstance. Well, I go back to what Paul said, if any man will not work, neither let him eat. If you are homeless and you are unwilling to do anything to get yourself out of that position to better your life, then as I say, I really can't help.
Right. What is the theology of suffering in a nutshell? What is allowing people to experience that pain do for them?
Theology of suffering.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'll answer it this way. If you have not been through suffering yourself, you're not capable of ministering to someone who is. And the people that we have coming through the rescue mission that have found recovery are the very best counselors you can ever get.
Right. And so those are the people that tend to be in the counseling positions and so forth, and they're ministering to people who they have been in that position themselves at some point, and that certainly has a lot more credibility. You have kind of an interesting background. You aren't a professional do-gooder. You want to tell us a little bit about what you used to do?
Well, the grace of God is so wonderful that even a lawyer can be put to productive use.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So you were a prosecuting attorney, is that right?
No. I came to El Paso in 1988 after I graduated from Baylor Law School. Started with the firm of Scott Holst, Marshall, Fuelfinger, and Thurman.
Okay.
And I was doing personal injury defense trial work.
Oh, okay. And so that's litigation then?
Yes.
Right, okay. And how did you cross that bridge?
How much time do we have left on the show?
Yeah, right.
Well, I see how succinctly I can put that. I used to go over to the mission lunch at St. Clement's Church.
Yeah. We have a lunch every month.
And there was a marvelous saint who's now gone home named Alex Blomirth. And my law office was just around the corner from St. Clement's.
Yeah.
Well, I would go over there and I'd get to have lunch with all these other professional missionaries. Right. And Alex started praying for me because he could obviously see the desire in my heart and that I would find a mission as well instead of full-time law practice. And so God called me in. After I said, "Oh, okay, Lord,
I'm available."
I'm available.
Right.
Then, voila, the opportunity was there almost instantly, and I prayed about it, and God said, "Get over there," and I did.
Right. How did your wife feel about it?
You know, she started speaking to me again after a few years. But actually, the story is much too long to cover on our show. But I'm putting a book together.
Oh, okay.
And as I say, I've now been at this 14 years. So that's chapter 1 in the book.
Okay.
And the way this came together is I love to go on speaking engagements. I'll go talk to Rotary clubs and churches and so forth. And after I tell them what's going on at the mission, then we usually have a little question and answer time. And someone would ask a question who's unfamiliar with the homeless population. And I'll think a few seconds and I say, that reminds me of a story. And I tell them a real life story of one of my encounters at the rescue mission that answers their question. And it occurred to me after a few years, I had so many of these stories floating through my brain that I opened up a laptop page in my laptop computer, and I started writing down little catchphrases that would remind me of each story, with the idea that each separate story can be a chapter in the book.
Sure.
Well, I'm up to 75 stories.
Right. Yeah.
And so I've got to edit it back because
Right.
nobody's going to want to read a book that thick.
Sure.
But
So it can be the volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, you know.
it may be, and I'm still learning. I learn as I go.
Sure.
So it's been great.
Now, can you enlighten us a little bit about what life is like? And again, you said the homeless population is very diverse, but the people that most of us see who are homeless are the ones who stand on the street corners with the signs. Are those your clients who are doing that?
No, you're seeing the people you think are homeless, and for the most part, they are not. And I analogize it to product liability law, if you pardon me, as back in my legal practice. As long as people keep buying a product, even if it's a very dangerous product and there's no consequences to it, then that manufacturer will continue to sell the product. Now, as long as we continue to give money to people on the street corner, we will have more people on the street corner asking for money.
Right. Yeah. So your recommendation is not to do that.
Do not give them money. There are lots of things that you can do to be a blessing. You can carry bottled water in your car. You can carry a granola bar. If you see someone that you think really is homeless, you can tell if they're homeless or not by their reaction if you hand them a granola bar.
Oh, really?
And if
because they're either looking for something to eat or they're looking for money.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And the reality of it is the vast majority are looking for money to go to the liquor store.
Yeah. And so the better thing to do is to invest in a nonprofit organization and allow them to do the ministry because they know how to do it.
Well, and we have the counselors on staff
Right.
that have worked with these folks. They know what to do to assist them up. As I say, you've got to be willing to stand up yourself.
Right.
But the nonprofit organizations that are doing this work have the counselors that can invest the time into the people's lives.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what they really need, not an extra quarter.
Right. Now, typically, how does the rehabilitation process work at the rescue mission? Is it a long process? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, with this gentleman that I hired and fired 5 times, it was, we're talking many years until he finally got it. Now, interestingly, his wife also came to the mission. They were at different times because he was locked up in prison when she came in and went through our drug and alcohol rehab program. His wife had been on the streets for 20 years, used every drug under the sun, and went through our relapse prevention program in year 2000 and has been clean since. And she's now our head counselor. So,
interesting.
Yes. So if you, the first step, and this is one of the reasons for the success of the relapse prevention program, if you want to get into our drug and alcohol program, you must first go to Darlene and convince Darlene that you really want the help. Because that's the key. If I tell folks, if you see the light at the end of the tunnel and you recognize it to be an approaching freight train, now you're ready for help.
Right.
And you know, we're creatures of habit, and I have my own habits. If you looked at my desk, it still looks like a lawyer's desk. It's a mess. It's horrible. And I will clean off my desk only if I get to the point that I can't find something. In other words, when life as we are living it becomes intolerable, now we're willing to change.
Right. Yeah.
If it's not intolerable, then we're not going to change.
Right. Yeah. You've also done some fairly innovative things with regard to manufacturing. I mean, you're not just a drug and rehab program, so to speak.
I want to be total rehabilitation, and now this one is old history. We go back to 2003. And we'd been running a drug treatment program for many, many years before I got there. So I inherited that program. But I began to see that even our best students going through the drug rehab program were unable to get jobs in El Paso. And of course it's even worse now, but El Paso has always had a very difficult job market. particularly for the unskilled worker. Well, we would have these folks that graduate from the relapse prevention program, go out, and they come back with such tales of rejection that it would make me relapse too. So I figured out if they were going to succeed, or if we were going to finish our task of rehabilitation, we had to give the first job. So we opened a furniture factory, and if you graduate from the drug and alcohol program, then we move you into the factory and we teach you how to work in a setting that you're surrounded by former drug addicts.
Interesting.
It's worked great.
Yeah. And then do they stay with that in the long term, or do they go on to other types of jobs?
We have some that have been there quite a long term, and they stay there as teachers for the next group. I had one man come to see me just this morning, and I was very sorry to see him leave. He's an excellent worker, but he finished the drug and alcohol program about a year ago. We gave him that first job. He got married. He has a home and a family now, and he was ready to get a better job that had health insurance benefits. We were unable to offer that. So he's now moving on to another job that he can make 3 times as much money as what we were paying him.
So it's a wonderful first step, but they're not supposed to camp there.
You got it. It's a first step.
Yeah, right. Great.
Great way to put it.
Well, Blake, it has been a pleasure to speak with you, and I'm excited to hear that this concept is working well, and hopefully we can hear more about it another time. Thank you for
Pleasure
being
to
with
be
us.
here.
Okay. So do you think that the rescue mission is on the right track? Let us know what you think on the social media. Thank you so much for watching.